Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 2020 Spring LCK Playoffs. It is LS and I on this broadcast today. LS, welcome, my friend. You've had a bit of a long night. You know, there's been grand finals happening all over the world, and we're here for round one of our playoffs.
Yeah, this is going to be DAMWON taking on DragonX. DAMWON just recently ending KT's Cinderella story in Spring 2020. And now they're going up against DragonX. So this is going to be a really rough matchup for them. And I have had a bit of a night. I watched LEC, little, 3-0 there, and LCS 3-0 there. And I'm not sure what today has in store for LCK.
Yeah, G2 and C9 both cruising through their finals here, but I'm not so sure it's going to be quite so cruisy here as many people would expect for DRX, because DAMWON looked like a whole new breed of team in the wild card, and I don't think anyone was expecting them to be the ones that came out on top against KT. I think everyone thought that KT were looking stronger heading into the playoffs, but not the case. I actually really liked what DAMWON did as far as changing up their play style just for these playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, DAMWON, I think that they did have some areas of alarm in their gameplay, and obviously what I'm referring to is they had very big leads, and then they were very eager to take very high variance trades, and it almost actually cost them that they were bailed out by, I would say, draft discrepancy. I think that the game one of DAMWON versus KT was very even Fnatic versus G2-esque in terms of how big of a gap it was, and it really just carried them through. Here against DragonX, though, I am a little bit worried if they take more high variance plays, because while KT was looking fantastic, I still would have said that KT would have been the underdogs against DragonX, so I think DAMWON, yet again here, have their work cut out for them.
That is true, but this is all for the right to play against T1. As you can see here, the playoffs draw has T1 waiting in that semi-final, and then the finals against Gen G will be the victor of that particular match. In a couple of days' time, one of these teams will be able to vie for a spot in our grand final, which will finally be held back in LOL Park. None of this remote broadcasting anymore. We're going to have the amazing suits of an LCK final. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any audience, but I mean, as close as we can get is good enough, in my personal opinion. So very, very exciting to see that. But I'm actually not so sure whether DRX are going to be able to cruise through this one, despite the fact that they've had a winning record against DAMWON almost every single time. It has never been there when it absolutely counts. And of course, I'm talking about the World's Gauntlet. And I know a lot of people will be saying, DRX had already gone through all of that turmoil. They were on the way down, but still, the proof is in the pudding, and DAMWON went to Worlds, and DRX had to stay at home.
Well, we can take a look at the match history as 18-7 in favor of DragonX. 2-0 in Spring Round 1 2019, and Round 2, 3-0 in Spring Playoffs Round 1 2019. Summer, DAMWON did beat them in Round 1, but DragonX clapped back. As I lose my voice right there. Take it away, Atlas.
Yep, no worries. As you can see, that final was a 3-2, 5-game series last time these two faced in a best-of-5. But let's have a look at some of the points here. Don't let Ornn through is going to be our first one.
Yep. Ornn could be pretty big priority here today. For both of, even for both of these teams, obviously Chovy able to flex it. Doran probably would really like it up there in the matchup versus Nuguri. And I think one of the really key factors. Yeah, this was good. The flash
just so
over
sick.
The paddle star for Pyoshig. And I think the matchup today, it's really going to be about Deft and Kyria versus Nuguri and Showmaker all around. I think DAMWON have a lot more strength on the top 3 side of the map, whereas DragonX is going to get all of their strength from Chovy's stability, as well as Kyria trying to set things up. Deft, he is very up and down in a lot of the last series, so it's really hard to say what kind of a Deft we're going to end up getting here today. So I think that there's a lot of pressure that needs to be paid attention to there. Also, Ghost is here in this series, so it's not going to be nuclear anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That might actually change up things for the better here for DAMWON. We've seen that Ghost has been able to outperform what Nuclear did offer this DAMWON squad, but also still had some of his Ghost tendencies that we certainly would remember. Because he does like to play a little bit aggressively. We saw that on his Kog'Maw, where he sort of went face first into a Baron pit for basically no reason in their loss in game number 2 against KT. So, look, we'll see whether he is going to be the Ghost that's going to save DAMWON or the Ghost of BBQ's past.
Well, we shall see. As going into the ban pick here, DragonX, I believe, is on blue to start things off.
Yep, and they would have had side selection as well moving into this game, so they've decided that blue side is where they're going to go. Means that oftentimes DragonX do put a lot of priority on getting Aphelios, and we've already seen in the Fnatic versus G2 series that getting Aphelios is only the first step, as you then need to be able to draft the composition that's going to work with him as well. As we have a look at this incredibly close Nexus race, that if DAMWON had won this, then it would have been that very even scoreline between themselves and DRX, at least for the LCK.
넥서스. 야 넥서스 쳐봐. 야, 제발. 세트. 이거 쳐봐. 얘네 못 붙네. 뛰어야 돼.
3텔이다.
이제 아칼리 이거 버려. 세트 무시. 이거 쌀. 자, 세트. 바드.
이거 끝낼 수 있나?
야, 미드. 텔포 없어. 미드 가봐.
이쪽으로 가면 게임 끝나.
내가 할게. 나 마지막에 풀도 쓰고, 나 진짜 개못했다.
괜찮아.
이거 판단 좀 하자. 칼다 했어. 너 멍청하게 했다. 그냥 텔 박아버릴 거야.
왜?
일단 너무 길었다.
이걸 좀. 털에 포커싱.
엄청 빨라. 우리 이거 그냥.
털에 오른쪽 한지 까리 거.
나 이거 우물에 털 맞아.
And they lose their minds, as you would assume, as we go straight into the points of the match. That moment was an absolutely insane one, and we'll see whether we do get one of those games at least in this best of 5 series. Long have we waited for today. The 26 match is back, of course, referring to the health bar of the Nexus. Angry DAMWON couldn't go to bed. Can they start their miracle run? Well, the run's already started. They've taken down KT, and that was an upset.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they can do from here.
And Doran at full potential versus Nuguri, who buries the opponent. Nuguri had a very good last series versus KT, and I think that that's going to obviously be pretty key coming into today's matchup, because Nuguri is going to be one of the driving forces for DAMWON to try to win this. And given that DAMWON's on the red side, that makes me a little bit nervous for DragonX to have the side selection in like blue, because red is really valuable right now with all the counter picks that are existing inside of the meta. And yeah, there are power picks, but a lot of them are answerable. And so we'll see what they try to do with the blue side first pick, as we take a look at the team stats right here. Regular season for both of them. First blood percentage, DragonX extremely low. 10th in the league, 34.8%. And I think, obviously, a lot of this is attributed to the fact that Pioshik mostly plays World of Warcraft in a lot of the games until he ends
And also, DRX constantly shove lanes. It's all about lane kingdom for DRX, and often they will still be winning in gold even though they lose first blood, because it allows the rest of their lanes to continue shoving relentlessly and denying their opponents. It's almost like they're happy to give away first blood, like they don't care about it in any sort of way, because they know that they can then leverage the rest of their players in order to get things done, and they have full information about the enemy jungler. So it's an interesting stat, absolutely.
Well, the lineup for today: Doran, Pioshik, Chovy, Deft, and Keria. No surprises there whatsoever.
Yep. Very standard stuff here for DRX. They have been a team that doesn't really like subbing for a very long time, and DAMWON are very similar. Of course, they do move Ghost in after the first round robin, but otherwise, not too many changes, as Beryl has been very standard on the bottom side of the map for quite a few weeks now. Haven't seen too much from Hoyt, but we'll see whether we do see him subbed in for the remainder of the tournament, as this is, of course, going to be our key player matchup, and player versus player, 10-3. Chovy versus Showmaker, but you have to remember that Griffin's stats do skew this a lot. Griffin did a hell of a lot of winning in 2019.
So regular season KDA 5.6 for Chovy, DPM 555. Nice number right there. And take a look at Showmaker. He has a lot of the middle of the pack stats, which is not really reflective of how insane of a player he really is. And I think that's obviously a little bit surprising. Solo kills 9 versus 13. And the champion pool, Showmaker definitely more of the control-y side. Chovy a little bit more on the sinful side as we jump into game 1.
And you were talking about side selection. Blue side has been selected here for DRX. We do have a lot of, I guess, questions for DRX as far as why they went for this one. DAMWON do manage to utilize red side very, very well. Being able to give counterpick to either Showmaker or Noggery is fantastic for this DAMWON squad. So we'll see what DRX have up their sleeve, as already the Trundle has been banned away from Canyon.
Well, see what DAMWON are going to do. It's going to be the Senna ban away.
Looking standard so far.
Yep. DRX. All right. Syndra.
Aimed at Ghost, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a dual flex. Showmaker can obviously pilot her, and Ghost did play her. And so perhaps Def just not wanting to go up against Syndra in the bot lane. Generally, it's a liability sometimes when AD carries pick up the mages. But it still does have to be respected. And obviously, Kalista, Set, Aphelios, these are champions that DAMWON can still be considering to ban away.
Yep, that Kalista, like you were talking about, is going to be taken off the board. DRX with their final ban. You could imagine that DRX very happy to lock down a Varus first pick if they can get to it. And I think it's likely that DAMWON's going to have to choose between the Aphelios and the Varus ban, as DRX thinking about what they want to take away here. It's Jace from Noggery. I think doing anything to slow down that man on the top side is definitely a good idea. He was on fire, especially on the Jace. Didn't actually die in his last series against KT when he piloted that champion. And we all know what he can do on the Jace, so understandable to get rid of it at this point. Still, there's going to be a lot left available, especially in the mid lane between Chovy and Showmaker. They'll be able to have pick of the litter here, as the two of them certainly showing some pretty fantastic performances recently. Thresh going to be taken away here, so both Aphelios and Varus are available, and this is not surprising whatsoever, as we do have a look in at the Varus once again. Likely that if Kerry can get his hands on that Morgana, we will see yet another Varus Morgana lane, which has been very, very strong. Lethality Varus on top of the Morgana for just so much poke and damage. Aiming's damage in that in the series against KT versus DAMWON was just insane on the Lethality Varus.
Yeah. And now DAMWON, they're going to respond with Set being picked up, and obviously this is a potential quadriflex, as he is top jungle, mid, and support.
And Showmaker going to take away the Zoe, of course. Chovy, probably the best Zoe in the world, in my personal opinion. He is extraordinarily good at this champion, so a pick away, but Showmaker is not far behind him, as we certainly do have some Zoe players here in the LCK. Kyoshik thinking about what he wants to do. So there are a few junglers left available, this one being a good example, as Sejuani is going to be there. We'll see whether Chovy decides that he wants to pick up his champion here. But Azir and LeBlanc both available, but both of them don't necessarily have the best time into the Zoe. So we'll see where he does decide to go. As man, if he just picks this, like self counter picks himself because he's so confident in his LeBlanc play, that is that's up. That's definitely a move he can make here in the final, and he is going to do it.
Well, the LeBlanc coming out for Chovy and DRX, I mean, they're starting things off. They're definitely from the school of sin. And DAMWON now, they're going to want to acknowledge this and just try to dial things back to more mid-range and scaling and try to just make sure that there's not real options for the LeBlanc. And there's the Ezreal coming in right now.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
This can make Deft go for the lethality Varus and try to go for poke and create windows for Chovy to go for the assassination. So right now, LeBlanc has some targets on the side of DAMWON, but things can definitely get dicey. Especially given that you have AP mid, you have AP jungle, Sejuani. Zoe's just going to get Merc Treads. It's going to feel very bad to play LeBlanc in the mid game, especially because Banshee's Veil is going to inevitably be picked up, and Ezreal probably going to end up getting a Hex Drinker at some point inside of the game. Things are already really good for DAMWON, and the responsibility is all on DragonX.
Yep, and now it's going to be DRX focusing the jungle. So far, the Aatrox band to come in here against Doran, and we'll see whether another set counter-esque type champion is going to come in. Of course, set counter is a very strong word for an Aatrox, not generally something that has worked out, especially here in the LCK, as you, my friend LS, have been very vocal about. We'll see whether that's where the bans are going to continue, as Morgana I was going to mention, and is a very intelligent ban here from DAMWON.
And I think that the Morgana ban really signifies that they want to go for support on R4, which now you're reserving counterpick for jungle. And I want to see what they would have in mind for counterpick jungle, because with the Ezreal and the Zoe already, you're not thinking of like a heavy AP jungler by any means. You just need something that is going to be durable and good against the Sejuani. And so there's lesser common champions I don't expect to see, like Rost and Ivern and whatnot, but we'll see what Korea's take is. They might just actually handshake the Jarvan and actually have a self-counter matchup, thinking that, hey, we just need to still protect our Ezreal and Zoe, even though it has less effectiveness against Sedge and LeBlanc.
Well, it looks like it is going to be the Yuumi locked in. Ezreal Yuumi for the bottom side of the map, paired with the Zoe, is very scary. Carrier thinking about taking a different one out here as far as the caster supports are concerned, and his Karma has looked good in previous matches and does serve a similar role to that of the Morgana. And so wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if this is going to be the lock-in for support. Doran has, of course, played it as well and can work as a counter into the set if that's where DAMWON are going to put it. I'm expecting DAMWON to pick Sylas into the jungle, but we'll just have to see where things are going to be going here as Carrier. What are we going to pick to round out this roster? If it's another support flex, it could be very confusing for DAMWON.
Well, it's going to be Ornn. And
theoretically is.
This is the thing, though, is Lethality Varus is going to hit like a truck, but now, I mean, Sylas gets insane value. And the Sylas wasn't actually something I wanted to see because you have so much magic damage on the Ezreal, Zoe, and Yuumi. I think that Graves here is actually completely fine because no one's going to build armor on the side of DRX. So I think GP, well, not GP, Graves would be super good, but GP pivot top lane against Ornn. Fnatic couldn't quite find this champion yesterday in the series versus G2, but they're going to pivot set into the jungle and now punish the GP. So DAMWON's draft it's really scary, but DragonX, one of the few teams that really do play for Lane Kingdom, try to get super early advantages, and despite I think this draft is giga lopsided in DAMWON's favor, I don't think that you can count DragonX out entirely, especially because DAMWON has a tendency to donk off even with advantages.
Yeah, they might go a little bit too ham on this one, but DRX has similar ideas generally, so we'll see who's going to donk off harder in this particular game, as the scaling is going to be there for DragonX. It's not necessarily something you talk about when you do have the lethality Varus and things like LeBlanc, but there will be that Sejuani and the Ornn able to amplify the rest of the team, and you can see exactly how this composition wants to work in these sort of river rams that we're going to have and these fights over objectives. It's all about whether Deft can land the piercing arrows, and we've already seen that he is very, very good at doing so. So let's just keep track of it. So far, he has a 90% win rate on the Varus. 9 out of 10 games he has won, and towards the end of the split, actually ticked over to being his most played champion so far in the LCK for 2020. So interesting that Deft has got full comfort, but he's up against an Ezreal Yuumi lane, which is very difficult to deal with. And Zoe, Ezreal Yuumi in the mid game, terrifying stuff as we get into game number 1 of round 1 of the playoffs.
And here we are, game 1 starting up, and I wanna talk about the champions again. As Set in the jungle, so it's obviously it's a pivot. Now he's one of the champions that makes use of the patch that we're playing on, the phase rush change. He has a lot of value out of that, obviously with Nimbus Cloak as well, as we would assume that he would have that. He doesn't have a reason to have anything else in that row. As the other thing is, DAMWON scaling is absolutely bonkers. Everyone can get magic resistance. DRX have 4 champions dealing magic. Varus even deals a little bit of magic damage himself, even though he's going to be full lethality. And this is going to mean that it can be really problematic for them to win in the later stages of the game. However, the Set in the jungle typically has less resources. He has less base levels. He's not as effective as a champion. I think that DAMWON really just did this to try to get the best possible edge in the draft than otherwise just picking some other AD jungler on R5, like Graves or Jarvan or something. Maybe they're viewing this as a better overall chance to win the game. DRX, though, they need to lane Kingdom in bottom, and they need LeBlanc to really show up, because if this game goes the distance, they're just going to get completely smacked.
Yeah, and DRX always play that style. And so let's see how they're going to go as the electrocute proc here on to Showmaker, but he's able to answer back with a bit of a paddle star there. We'll just see how this top lane's going to go. I think this is actually going to show us a lot about what to expect in this series. It's how Doran is playing today, because we've seen that he's had certainly some ups and downs in recent series, as there's all of that poke that is available here from the DRX bottom lane. It's real scary to deal with.
And one of the scary things is the Sejuani for Pyosik is a little bit bizarre, given that they are trying to play for lane Kingdom, which a priority jungler, or one that can be really aggressive and coordinate dives very well without really falling behind or being slow at things, probably would have been much more ideal in this game. The other thing is that it deals the magic damage, so that's a little bit bewildering. The other thing that I want to point out is that I think this draft really tells us a lot, potentially, about the series overall. Because if DAMWON can actually just play safe and outscale DRX, this whole series is just going to be a nightmare, because DRX is full of sin.
Yes, they are, but it's Canyon that's doing the most sinning here in the early game, already trying to flash for a facebreaker. I'm not even sure whether that would have landed had he actually fully gone for it, as he's going to wrap around and try this once again. You can see that Pyosik was waiting in the wings, but he's currently trying to take down his red buff. Some zoomies towards the bottom side here to try and keep Ghost alive, who's doing his best to try and farm it out against Deft, and so far he's been doing okay. Canyon is spotted taking this Rift Scuttler, and so the bottom lane of DRX with full information. Top side, though, you can see Nogri now able to play up because he knows the location of this Sejuani. And Showmaker trying to get the shove here in the mid lane. So far, everything going pretty well for DAMWON.
Yeah, everything is basically going about as well as you could hope. Now, Sejuani's going to go for the full clear, and in response to this, Set is going to go for the double Scuttle Crab. This is a dynamic that sometimes happens with full clear junglers versus early game Sinner junglers, where they're able to mitigate the fact that they can't farm as efficiently as some of the other junglers that are able to opt for the full clear, and instead they mitigate the early game deficit by getting both of the Scuttle Crabs to basically salvage the fact that they can't do the Golem camp or the Raptor camp. So,
yeah,
as everything does stand, DAMWON is really stable at this point in time. The things don't start to get worrying for DRX until about 2.5 items, so we'll have to still see what they're going to manage to do here. But everything's just really stable right now.
Yeah, just chilling. This point in time, Doran taking a bit of damage here towards the top side, but he can start building some items to try and help him against this Gangplank. Still waiting for probably that Trinity Force to be completed before Ornn's life gets absolutely awful. Still farming things out just fine is this Ornn up against the GP, despite it being quite a difficult matchup here. Is once again checking in towards the bottom side, and always look to see where the Deft and Carrier are getting ahead. Oftentimes it is the barometer that DRX play around, and I love it. It's the complete opposite for DAMWON. They love playing around their mid and top side, and so let's see where Canyon's going to be to try and help that happen, because he has 2 schools of thought, and we've seen already the bottom side has been one of them to try and alleviate the pressure that always seems to be down there against DAMWON? Or does he try to get his solo lanes further ahead as we enter towards this mid game? And you can see Showmaker already being frustrating as he's looking to try and steal some popcorn chicken away from Kyoshik.
And Doran's playing a little bit safe up here in top lane, the way that the whole match is played. He's keeping up in CS, but if we take a look at some of the first items that have come in, Tyrion, Ezreal, Varus went for the Executioners to try to harm the Yuumi because they're playing for that poke. They have double Scorch down there with double Comet, with the Varus and the Karma. And you can see the Zoe with the Merc Treads Rush. It's just insane value as everyone on the side of DRX deals magic, becomes really hard for LeBlanc to set up ganks. It's really hard for Sejuani to find damage inside of her ganks. Very, very pressuring for Chovy, and he's being locked inside of this lane and not really able to do anything. And when all of his laners are just pushing, there's not a whole bunch that you can do. So we're coasting towards an inevitable mid game where DAMWON Gaming are just going to show up with better resistances and a team composition that has autonomy in the game, gets to decide if it wants to fight or not because of the set, because of the gangplank and the long range by Ezreal and Zoe. So things aren't looking super hot as the first recalls already came in and DAMWON's not achieving anything. Or DRX.
Yeah, DRX, yeah. They're not really able to get themselves any sort of lead at this stage. I think so much of this game is going to come down to depth and how many of his abilities he's going to be able to land. And with pressure being on a player that has been a little bit more shaky than the rest of DRX, I think it is, you know, the story of Chovy and Keria being extraordinarily strong this season, and the rest of DRX having some shaky games. Often in different games, as we've seen Doran really fall down, we've seen Deft have worrisome performances. Pyoshik, of course, has looked to have some of these rookie jitters. So we'll see whether Deft has shown up here for the playoffs. So far, so good, as he's getting a lot of poke damage here onto Ghost and to Beryl.
They can actually just freeze. I mean, it doesn't change that much, but it's definitely they're speeding it up. And the thing that's so peculiar about this is if they pile up waves with Sejuani pathing back to the right-hand side of the map, and then Chovy knowing that the Zoe's recalling right now, Chovy can insta-crash this wave and then move with Sejuani. If you push your wave slower, you can maybe do something, but if you push it immediately, everyone's off theme. Why is Ornn's wave so pushed up against Gangplank as Sejuani's moving to the right-hand side? Why is LeBlanc now moving by herself? And this is just what DAMWON wants. They want DRX to be very misaligned, and with Kyoshik playing Diablo 3, not a lot of stuff is going to happen. So,
hey, unless he gets some legendaries in that jungle, who knows? He might be able to completely change his build based on those items. So could certainly be able to turn things around. And I actually think it's an interesting analogy, to be perfectly honest, because if Kyoshik isn't punished, then he might be able to come out of this jungle with a decent advantage against the set who, like you were talking about earlier, struggles to have the same sort of relevance as the solo lane sets can in these games. So look to see what Pyoshik can do. This is certainly some vintage Pyoshik play right now. So far hasn't affected any lanes whatsoever. I think Scrya's Bloom is the most help that he's actually been able to get done, but so far, DRX haven't necessarily been punished for it, apart from Deft's Splash being put on cooldown earlier on. But even then, no follow-up gank means no harm, no foul for DRX, and they were able to keep their advantage on that bottom side. As you can see, close to a 20 CS advantage. And they're also going to have shove power, meaning that Canyon probably not going to be able to take this Rift Scuttler, but Showmaker from the inside. There's the final chapter, and instantly the Yuumi is taken down. Canyon now trying to get out. Good bubble. Lands from Showmaker, but Chovy is off to the side, just making sure that he can't get in. Dashing on in. The Mimic's going to land as well as the Chains, and they do manage to get a cleanse that Showmaker stole away out of him for now. But that is first blood going over to DRX, and that's going to help with that abysmal stat that they had, being basically first blooded in all of their games.
Yeah, I mean, this is really nice for them. Now, they're not going to pick up the Ocean Dragon, and we're going to take a look at that replay, you have to wonder what Beryl was doing at that point in time, because they had complete vision. They knew exactly what was happening. Let's take a look at this. So, Beryl doesn't know about the ward over the edge, but final chapter comes out, And Def just landing that ultimate. Beryl didn't know it hit him.
Yeah, well, he did in the end. That was Chains of Corruption, Beryl, if you were still a little bit worried about it. As Showmaker just going to continue trying to shove things here in the mid lane. This is going to hurt Chovy's farming stats. His CS difference has certainly been very high so far, but he's down at the moment at 10 minutes in. Is now Rift Herald being claimed. Chains landed there. There's a Showmaker still going to be darting forward, looking for bubbles, and does find one there onto Chovy, but Kerry is able to body block. And you can see Shelly, she's just going to turn around, go back to her house. And Deft looking to steal away plates here on the bottom side. DRX love doing this. They're more than happy to give up Rift Heralds because they know that they can just continue to put money into their bottom lane. But Cannon Barrage is going to change things here. They are at least able to get another plate, but they'll have to wait for the next minion wave. Nogri now without that ultimate for a fight if it is going to occur.
Yep. And they are getting plates down here in bottom, and the gold score is still pretty even, though. So, True Shot Barrage comes out. Def and Carrier both do get hit.
Nogri going to get hit as well, as the flash actually comes out in this 1v1. Nogri understanding that without his ultimate, he's not able to fight back against this Ornn quite as well as he would have otherwise liked.
Yep. And one of the upsides is that DAMWON, even though they got the Herald, I know that I've spoken about this a lot on the broadcast. I had a conversation with Doublelift even a couple of days ago about this. Teams really misunderstand Herald in that if you have to rotate members to get it, you often operate at a net loss because the enemy gets XP, which isn't even accounted for, but more gold. We got to fight.
Yeah, we do. Haymaker comes out. That's going to keep Canyon alive for the moment. And now the final chapter is in depth. Has been stunned up. Canyon is extraordinarily low, as is Def, but the disengage has to come in here for DAMWON. Ghost going to get slowed down, but Pyoshik relatively low as well, and Chovy can't quite find his way into this fight, but he's still at full health and should be able to claim this Rift Scuttler for the moment.
They'll be able to pick that one up, so Crisis ends up being averted. As teleport available on Nuggery, and I mean, he's just sitting pretty as Trinity Force already completed. Call going to be able to be completed here soon. He's only 4 waves away from doing so. So DAMWON, I mean, they're sitting comfortable at this point in time. 1,000 gold lead is all that exists for DRX. They have no dragons, so they're not threatening the soul or anything that can really move Ezreal Zoe in the later stages of the game. And I think that that's going to be where the real concern is. Pyoshik just outside of vision of that ward, so he'll be able to sneak this, and then ideally DRX wants to roll Cloud.
Oh my god. Def does a hell of a lot of damage. Has his Umbral Glaive completed, as well as another Serrated Dirk. Carrier standing over here, but Canyon just going to be Hex flashing around, seeing whether the Karma was going to go aggressive. You can see Deft at about half health at this point in time, as now they're looking to try and funnel some more gold into the Ezreal. It is important that the Ezreal is relevant at this stage of the game, as Shelly going to get a charge, but the rest of DAMWON are distracted, and Ghost almost gets taken down by one piercing arrow. Great face breaker from Canyon, but he's by himself basically, only with the help of the Yuumi there, as Showmaker not going to find the trouble bubble, but gets a fair bit of damage out with his paddle star. Now Chovy makes his way in. Of course, Redemption was picked up because, oh my god, there's the flash forward. And Chovy's going to be able to lock down that kill onto Ghost in the end. Deft setting it up really nicely. Another ulti comes out of Showmaker. Also going to be taken down 3-0 so far for DRX. And I don't think that Cannon Barrage is going to do enough.
And it looks like DRX now, they're going to accelerate this really hard as Canyon and Beryl might
final
just
chapter
go down
comes
here.
in. Carrier trying to flash himself out of there. Beryl. Oh my god, these piercing arrows are doing way too much damage, and they're still going for the dive. A double kill for Def. Pyoshik is going to survive, and they'll take down this turret. This is turning into a shellacking.
Well, this is absolutely... I don't even know what to say. This is so bewildering to see DRX completely turn the game on its head, because remember, DAMWON could have recalled here, and they didn't recall. So they chose to stay, they greeted for some sort of value. Def goes forward, finds the opening, and Keria moving around on the Karma. They didn't want to stop here, they were limit testing, and they managed to juggle the turret aggro, in a way that allowed them to get the kill. And the piercing arrows, like you were pointing out, Legolas lives on.
Oh yeah.
As Piotrek with the Karma Shield as well. Now they end up getting the bottom turret. And they have a 3,000 gold lead. It's only 15.5 minutes, but remember, this is something that could have been avoided for DAMWON, and you have to wonder if they're going to tilt. The Varus is also the one with all the kills.
Yeah, 100% kill contribution at the moment for Deft. 302, able to halve the health bar of an Ezreal with 1 Q. I don't know whether that was empowered with the W as well, but it doesn't matter. That is just obscene amounts of damage, as DAMWON are probably confused about how much it is actually doing, and that's why we are heading into a pause at this stage of the game. But I think this has really gone against what we were expecting in the draft, just based on, once again, I think it might be another example of the DAMWON donking off situation that you were warning us about earlier on in the draft.
Yeah, so this is one of the things where they greeded for value even though they didn't need to whatsoever. Ghost absolutely should have just recalled. They should have backed off and everything would have been okay. Chovy made his way down, and Deft getting more and more kills is problematic because Deft is the player they can't itemize against. No one on the side of DAMWON wants to get armor. And so the lethality Varus, if he just keeps getting accelerated, he is going to hit like such a truck in the mid-game transition that he's going to be the real problem for the Ezreal Zoe, because despite their magic resistance that Zoe might get with the Merc Treads and maybe leaning towards the Banshee's Veil, Varus's arrows will provide LeBlanc with the lethal range that she needs, despite the resistance on Zoe.
Yeah, and also, now with lethality Varus doing so much damage, they're almost incentivized to build armor when they absolutely do not want to. And so now you've got this really difficult question of, it's very similar to what you explain with Karthus compositions, right? Yeah. Force your opponent to build a certain resistance against 4 of your champions, so the one important one does a bajillion damage. And that's exactly what's happened with Deft, because there are Merc Treads everywhere. There is magic resistance everywhere, because there's a lot of magic damage coming out of DAMWON's composition. But if you don't do anything about the Varus, you're still just going to get chopped down if you don't have those armor values. So now DAMWON in a very difficult state, purely because they allowed this to happen to them. And you could tell that DAMWON had a plan. They obviously came into this understanding that they need to try and deal with Keria and Deft, but it just didn't work. They got Deft's flash early, whoop-de-doo. Try and kill him after that, please, because they didn't manage to actually affect that lane state in any way, shape, or form.
Well, this is a... You know what? I gotta tell you something, Alice. Right now...
Tell me.
We're in the Pog state.
We are, and we're actually filming the next episode tomorrow. So, really interesting that we've got a little bit of a preview for you guys. Just to let you guys know, Showmaker is apparently lagging, so we're looking to try and fix that one up, as he wasn't the one that was just hit by a gigantic piercing arrow in the mid lane, so it's not due to exceeding amounts of damage. It is just something going wrong with his PC or the internet or something like that. So just have to make sure that we can figure it all out. But yeah, you're exactly right. Bit of a preview for the Pog State. We're going to do a bit of a wrap-up for the regular season of the LCK. And we're going to have to wrap our heads around exactly what happened because, you know, the regular season has been really weird here in the LCK. And so far, I think in the playoffs with our first match between DAMWON and KT, the level of players already stepped up. But we'll see whether DRX and DAMWON are going to be able to continue moving on that trajectory where so far, DRX certainly performing well, but DAMWON may be lacking just a little bit.
Yeah. And, okay, never mind. We're back into the game immediately.
Yeah.
As... Remember, in the draft phase of the game, we outlined that it would be really hard. Look at all the Merc Treads on the side of DAMWON. I don't know what memo Ezreal got with the Ionian boots, but obviously going down a little bit more of an offensive route. We mentioned that all that DAMWON had to really do was stabilize and hold on. We mentioned the disparity with the jungle and the lane matchups with the Sejuani, and the early game was really stable for them. But now they're starting to lose their ground, starting to lose their footing. It's Infernal Dragon coming up next, and if DRX roll Mountain third, that's going to be pretty good news for them, and that's going to be ideal. So DAMWON, despite a draft advantage, they're not playing in a way that they should have ideally been striving towards. And so it opens up the possibility for the sinfulness on DRX's team composition to try to flourish, and so far they're managing to do so here, and that's why I was mentioning it is DRX. So this is a dicey thing, and will DAMWON start to tilt in this game, or are they going to really start to tighten up from this minute forward?
You always have to remember Billy Joel's wise words, LS, and it's I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. And right now, we're laughing with the sinners. DRX is certainly, they're sinning it to win it at this point in time, and it's working out very, very well. Close to a 4,000 gold lead. Total damage dealt is all about the Varus, and you can see Noguri was able to get a fair bit of work done with his cannon barrages, but they haven't really been able to actually influence any fights. So yes, his damage number is high on the side of DAMWON, but not very consequential because he's just throwing it out on the other side of the map when it wasn't actually going to be able to lock down kills. And so it's not over yet. Of course, DAMWON, you were talking about it, they have a hell of a lot of scaling options with this composition, despite the fact that they're against an Ornn. And so still not end of the world or anything like that, but this gentleman on your screen right here is Canyon looking for Deft, will land the ultimate. They're trying to take down Deft, and they will do so. Is Canyon probably going to get stunned up for the moment? And yeah, Chovy able to lock down Showmaker. He's burning. Does he have another? Oh, yes, he does. Finds the heal. Keeps himself alive. Thank you very much, Beryl. As that is not going to be the one-for-one that DRX were looking for, and this is shutdown gold now being delivered to DAMWON.
And it's also coming in at a time where Deft's death timer is still, I mean, it's on right now. Now he does have TP, but Infernal Dragon is live. However, Set is moving to the left-hand side of the map, and Nuguri is in top lane, although Doran's teleporting to Chovy. Deft is, take it away.
Yeah, I don't know why Deft's teleporting top lane when they probably want to be able to grab themselves a dragon. Looks like with Noguri using his teleport to get up there, though, it's going to be Kyoshik just taking this dragon for free.
Yeah.
And so that should be fine. They do have a lot of deep vision on the side of DRX, so they are able to do this without having to worry. This ward over here, I don't think gave DAMWON nearly enough information to be able to stop this, so it is going to be the Cloud Soul this game. Damn it, I should have cast cursed it again. I'm so sorry.
You really missed the opportunity there. So the thing
I messed up. I actually thought about it, but then didn't actually commit. And I should have.
The top turret right now for DRX, it would actually, I talk about this sometimes on the cast, right? Letting it die. Intentionally letting it fall so that the minion wave can actually come further up inside the lane. Even though Gangplank would get some of the turret gold, the map position post Drake capture would be pretty good for DRX, especially because they're looking to make fights and action happen. So if Gangplank doesn't have anywhere to go but to group with his team, you end up getting rewarded for letting the turret fall and thus creating a map state that's then beneficial to DRX's team composition. So they get the Infernal Dragon, DAMWON just let it go. They rolled really well in that Cloud Dragon's coming up, but Nuguri, he's got a hot date, that's why he's pushing out the lane.
Yeah, he wants to get to his Maw of Malmortius. He should be able to grab that one. Does have his cull completed now. We'll probably sell that one off relatively soon. We'll see when he's going to be able to complete these items. But with Maw of Malmortius coming in second for the Gangplank, it means that it's going to be a while before he sort of hits the CDR timings and the crit timings that he really wants with things like Essence Reaver and the Infinity Edge. I'd actually like to see that Caulfield's Warhammer turn into an Essence Reaver instead of actually completing the Maw of Malmortius. Of course, you do exceed the cooldown reduction cap. I don't know whether he took Transcendence. He may have in a secondary or something like that, but not going to benefit too much from having 50% CDR. And of course, Gangplank really does enjoy building up those first two items in the Essence Reaver and the Trinity Force. There's Canyon. He's Hex flashing. There's Chovy just being a nuisance.
You can actually see the itemization on DAMWON right now. Everyone does have the MR stack except for the Ezreal, who is going for the Trinity Force. Mikhail's on Yuumi. You can see Set even just going for basically pure tank right now with his Cinder Hulk. And interestingly enough, Zoe is going for Proto Belt, second item, in addition to the Luden. So not quite the Banshee's Veil that I was expecting.
Or is it Super Soaker? Might be the Super Soaker instead.
That could be one of the possible options. But the DragonX they're sitting somewhat comfortable right now. It's only a 3,500 gold lead, roughly, for them. As they're going to play ping pong with the lane states, and this isn't good. So this is an LEC Atlas. We're not going to get any freezes.
No, it's not about that. We don't like to freeze. It's turning into summer. And so, yeah, not going to be freezing any lanes anytime soon. That is going to suit Noguri, who's looking to try and find himself a back timing and might move one of DRX towards that top side to alleviate some of the pressure that DAMWON have been dealing with. Varus going to go back home, has Edge of Night now completed. That is 3 items on the Varus, as well as a Luxury Executioner's Calling. Deft is extraordinarily strong, currently ahead by 50 CS against his lane opponent. But you can still see that Noguri is keeping up with Deft's farm right now, and he went back and completed a Death's Dance instead of any sort of crit. So this is going to be a very different Gangplank build this time around.
Yeah, this is... So it's going to have the resistances as well as the sustain. And, okay, Noguri does have a lot of magic resistance. He's at 147. This LeBlanc, she did pick up a Void Staff, also has the Sork Penetration boot, so is getting quite a lot of value there, but this Gangplank is still just so durable, and with Grasp of the Undying, it's really hard for the LeBlanc to kill him in a side lane. And the way that things are standing right now, 1 minute until the Cloud Dragon comes in. Doran is level 15, so Yumu's Wraithblade will most likely end up being built. Warmog's being rushed on Sejuani as the second item for her. But Luden's Pulse and Yumu's Wraithblade are the only options that I think are going to be on the horizon. Chovy probably way too far away from depth cap, and why is Noguri not freezing right now? Take it away.
He's never freezing. When you ask that question, you always know what the answer is going to be, and you're always going to be disappointed, my friend. That's just how it goes. But I want to see Doran actually move over here. The Wraithblade is in, and Ghost just continues to get poked out here by Deft. However, it's not really turning into anything at this stage. Canyon, with his Chain Vest, not going to take as much damage from these piercing arrows. But Cloud Drake's going to be spawning in a few seconds' time, and this will be Soul Point. Of course, Cloud Soul, not exactly the most valuable, but that's absolutely fine. Deft throws an arrow into Narnia, which does thematically make sense.
The thing here is
bit
that...
of archery done there in Narnia.
Yeah, exactly. Deft right now is effectively at 4 items, all things considered, because you consider the Yumu Wraithblade upgrade, and then you consider the fact that he has the Executioners, which is pretty good. And, okay, well, bit of a trade.
Yep, free Drake going on over to DRX. They're going to be able to take the Rift Scuttler, and Pyoshik's going to be able to enter the enemy jungle and see what he can do as well. As Doran moving on over also. See how quickly he can get himself to level 16 and give away that Luden's Pulse as well. So looking forward to seeing what Chovy can do with a bit of extra statistics in his back pocket. Or whether perhaps they wait, you know. I'm hoping that it is going to be a Locket of the Iron Solari to come in next for Pyoshik so that they can at least utilize that extra money. And of course, Locket is able to offer a fair bit. He could even build a Abyssal Mask if he wants to. There is a fair bit of magic damage coming out on DAMWON's side, but probably going to want that Locket potentially for, you know, Noguri's ultimate in a team fight, things like that. Searing Charge comes out here from Doran, but you can see both him and Noguri not taking too much damage based on this particular Gangplank build. Canyon moves on down to the bottom side, and this is a very healthy turret as DRX continue to siege in the mid lane.
And at this point, we got 4 minutes until the Cloud Soul comes up, and maybe Chovy is going to be a bit of a savant. He has the needlessly large rod.
Ooh.
Perhaps they'll just wait for that to get the Rabadon's Death Crown and try to give LeBlanc as much damage as possible. And that's going to be really important in helping to mitigate some of the pressure that this LeBlanc is going to have, as Deft continuing to move towards his next lethality item, most likely going to be the Duskblade of Drakthar.
Yep. Still landing a lot of damage onto Showmaker and Ghost here. The Zoomies not quite finding the value that they want as Noguri. He pushed down the bottom outer turret, so a bit of extra gold going into the hands of DAMWON, but the pressure is definitely there for DRX if Deft continues to land these piercing arrows. It is all on the Varus. I mean, if he's missing, then his value is plummeting in this game because he's so important to be able to soften up these members so that Chovy can dive in, so that Pyosik can land that ultimate, so they can find engages and actually succeed against this DAMWON composition. Ulti's going to go down as Canyon just bursted out of nowhere, and the disengage is so easy. DRX now, with a minion wave they prepared earlier, going to take down this turret in the mid lane and maybe continue to push forward.
And this is the really worrying thing for DAMWON here, as they're going to lose more and more value. There's no answer to how far ahead this Varus is right now. He's the one champion that can stand up to Ezreal Zoe and basically say, hey, anything you two can do, I can do better. As his poke is just too much for the side of DAMWON to handle right now. And it's not until they can start ignoring the other DRX members that they're really going to be able to bounce back. As Zoe trying to make some sort of a stand, but DRX...
Oh, Chovy, too easy. Gets the kill onto Showmaker there. Ghost now, with the help of the Yuumi, should keep himself alive for the moment, but that showstopper is not stopping the shows that DAMWON wanted to, as that is going to be the triple kill. Chovy will grab another one. Pyosik collects that one. And now Carrier will get the stun off. It's not looking like Nogari's going to be able to take down the Karma, as Doran trying to keep this gangplank at bay. Chovy turns up. Nogari does have a lot of ability to stay alive. I mean, this Death Dance is doing a hell of a lot of work, but they will be able to take him down. That's going to be the ace. And DragonX wastes no time. Pyosik is already here at the Baron, and Deft has shown up to try and take this one down.
And Dustblade of Drakthar is in here. As we take a look at the replay, you can see DAMWON, there's no reason to go for this kind of a play whatsoever. This is the tilty, over-antsy, reckless behavior that they're known for. And right here, they pushed DRX back. They knew that DRX just needed to reset. Again, no reason. There's no objective on the map for them to look for team fights. And DRX basically says, thank you so much, as they invite themselves out onto the map into the open, thus giving a lot of power over to DRX, and they all get picked off, and now it's an 8,000 gold lead. Baron buff on DRX, Dragon Soul coming up in 30 seconds, and Atlas, this is why I was mentioning in the draft phase that the tendency of these two teams, even though DAMWON won in terms of the massive scaling draft, I thought that DRX would still win just because the manner in which both of them are going to play out the drafts, DAMWON has the tendency to tilt, and they have a tendency to get over antsy, and I think that's really bad against DRX.
Yeah, now DRX is going to be able to move down here towards the river, grab themselves the last Cloud Drake. That will be the monopoly of dragons, certainly being held onto here by DRX. And at 30 minutes on the dot, basically, we will have that Cloud Soul picked up. In fact, 30 seconds earlier, as Pyosik's going to lock that one down. So a lot of extra movement speed, a lot of extra CDR on these ultimates, as Nogari is in trouble. He's just going to be taken here. There's just you can't eat enough oranges to keep you alive in this scenario. And DRX pushing up this minion wave towards the bottom side. This inner turret will be next on the menu. And there's only been one death on the side of DRX. That was that one forced death onto Deft in the mid lane that looked very difficult to gather for themselves and didn't really stop DRX's push forward. As Piercing Arrow lands onto Showmaker. Yeah, Deft is very, very big.
Deft is, I mean...
you know, Chovy and Doran pretty strong as well. As now we're looking for the knock-up onto Ghost. He's not going to be able to go anywhere. Flash forward from Doran. Chains connect. And Chovy is trying to battle Deft for player of the game for this one. I have a feeling he might even be able to get over the edge as well, because you have to look at it. Deft is 100% of his team's deaths right now, and that's probably not good enough. If I was LS, I wouldn't be impressed. But these Nexus turrets are not going to have to worry about that one. They are just going to go down because the damage here from DRX is going to be too high. And game number one will be taken by DRX, who are waiting in round one of the playoffs. This is the team that got removed from second place by APK. You saw how depressed Carrier was. But this DRX team do not look tilted moving into the playoffs.
No, they look extremely, extremely clean in this game number one. Obviously had to wait for DAMWON to basically give them the opportunities in order to capture the game and bring it back. And that's one of the things that's going to be really worrisome, because now, going into game number 2, DRX are going to have counter picks available. They're going to be the ones that are probably going to end up on the side of scaling, and with DRX lane kingdoming seemingly regardless of if they have good matchups or not, it's really worrisome, because I think that the thing that's so important about this game number 1 is if DAMWON can't win with that kind of a draft edge, I don't know how they're supposed to win at all.
Yeah, and also, DAMWON were gifted red side in game number 1 and weren't able to actually translate that into a victory. And that's also bad news. So now, with the ability to move over onto the blue, they might be able to pick away something like a Varus. But then they have to contend with Doran getting a counterpick against Noguri, having that lane go much better for DragonX. Having counterpick for Chovy, which could be even more terrifying.
Yeah.
As we have a look at some of these highlights, as Deft helps pick off this kill very, very easily. As him and Chovy had one hell of a game. As LS, you need to vote for player of the game.
All right, do I even need to? Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Just write down a Chovy. All you need to do is write down Chovy.
Do not speak of what my vote was, Atlas.
You did an Atlas. You're not allowed to do that. That's my job. I'm supposed to go against our player of the game god, Chovy.
Yeah. He got robbed. He got robbed by Dev.
He did. Yeah. On the English broadcast.
Yeah, on the English
Watch
broadcast,
Chovy pick it up anyway, because everyone on the Korean broadcast is going to vote for Chovy. And we're like, well, we were part of the problem, guys. We were part of the problem this whole time. As he did play very, very well, but honestly, the points of the game where Chovy was performing was after Deft had done all of the work in the early game to make sure that DragonX were in a position where this composition could win. Because if Deft wasn't that huge, this game looks very different, as you illustrated throughout that game.
Yeah. And all of it stemmed from DAMWON being greedy with the better scaling team composition. And they stayed in bottom, and that was the start of the snowball. Or, I don't even want to call it a snowball. It was an avalanche once that happened down in bot. Nuguri, I mean, the way that he played out the laning phase against the Ornn, he actually lost, even though he had a call, which was also interesting and a good sign if you are a DRX fan, because Nuguri is going to be integral to DAMWON's chances at winning. And now he's going to have to go in with a blind pick here, most likely, in game number 2, and that's not that great. And jungle set, that's the one thing that's nice to see. Not because anything good happened, but what happens
because
when set's under leveled, doesn't have items,
Yeah. And maybe people will be deterred from picking the jungle set again. As we can see, Def did 30k damage in 30 minutes. 1,000 damage a minute is not bad statistically, guys. It's in fact extraordinarily good. So very well done for the Varus. Of course, if you're playing Lethality Varus, getting high damage numbers is generally the aim of the game. But it's just really good to see that Deft has his eye in here today, because he was one of the question marks. And I know it's really weird talking about it. If you've come into the LCK just to watch the playoffs and you hear me saying that Deft might be the shaky part of this team, it's certainly a weird thing to say given his pedigree, but certainly good to see that he's playing well. And we'll see whether he continues to do so as we move to game number 2 right after the break.